Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari, and well, I can say Happy New Month is the first program in the, in the month. Yesterday being a Sunday, and of course, Happy New Year is in order as well. This is the first time. My thanks to Abosede, who has held fort. So, but hitting the ground running, the Senate constitutes a special committee on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Here we are in February, and as is known, INEC should have 12 months before the next election. And so right now, this is it. We're really skating on thin ice here, but the Senate President has constituted this committee. It's to be chaired by the Chairman, Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters. That is Senator Adeni Agbomire, APC Ondo Central. And we just hope that they can do what they need to do and indeed send it to the whole House so that they can deliberate on this, because we actually are running late. Needless to say, perhaps, the House of Reps has already finished work on this, but it was the Senate, and there are complaints that why has the Senate let it go up to this extent? But here we are. Okay, our guest this morning is, he joins us. He's a member of the MBA Building Kebbi branch. In fact, he's the Assistant Secretary, Mr. Yusuf Muhammad. Good morning to you, sir. Mr. Yusuf Muhammad.
You see us now?
I know you're there because we've been speaking. Mr. Yusuf Muhammad, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
You can hear us.
To give me latency.
Okay, good. Mr. Yusuf Muhammad. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. I was just saying that this amendment, this bill, the amendment bill that has been forwarded to the Senate now, there are those who are saying it's actually a bit late. It has to do a number of things. The electronic transmission of results, we have to tighten that up. It didn't happen quite the way it was supposed to happen the last time, but we were assured by INEC that whatever the fault was, it didn't affect the veracity, accuracy of the election. But still, a lot of observers wanted to see it work the way it should work, that is to say, transmit the results, and let's see it. Then there's the whole matter of stricter penalties for electoral offenses, as well as generally expanding the voters' confidence and appreciation for what the options are. But let me take it one after the other. Are you concerned that we might be running late, given the stipulations that INEC requires 12 months before it can put out a calendar? And here we are between February now and February 2027. That's exactly 12 months, and work has not been completed. So we can't have put the bill in front of the president for his signature. What do you think about these kind of matters regarding the Special Committee on Electoral Act Amendment Bill?
Yes, what I am seeing is that the process is a little bit late. It is long overdue. Just like you rightly stated that election is just 12 months to go. And then you know that Electoral Act does not only regulate the conduct of the election, but there are pre-election issues that are arising from the conduct of parties' primary election and the submission of a candidate by the political parties. Now, when you look at it, the Electoral Act gave rights to agreed person or candidate to approach Federal High Court for any grievances he has in the party's primary election and other issues relating to the qualification. More particularly that this 2025 amended bill remove the first qualification, first grounds of petition, that is grounds on qualification of candidate, and left with only two grounds of petition. So you have to challenge the qualification of a candidate before the election, that is during pre-election litigation. Now, with these 12 months and parties are to conduct primary election 6 months to election as provided by the Electoral Act. So you see, if the Electoral Act is not ready, the litigation will soon start it because primary election may commence by June, May this year, and then the aggrieved party will approach the court, which is at least 6 months or less than that to election. And we don't have the electoral bill assented by the president. So you see the chunk of the work will be put on the head of judex, that is the judges at the Federal High Court who are presided by, who have the jurisdiction to determine issues of pre-election. And you see there are a series of complaints, more particularly from the opposition party, that the amendment is late, and that is the true fact because, you know, new provisions are emerging. And when this new provision imagine, you know, the court must be up to the task to see that the termination of the pre-election cases is in compliance with the provision of the electoral bill if assented. So any moment from now, we are seeing it, we as a lawyer, we see that it is dangerous that the act has not come to the come in force so that the pre-election cases that will go to the Federal High Court will be dispensed with in accordance with the provision of the act. So it is too late to do that.
Well, too late, but still, I can't imagine a situation where they're shifting the election. I don't know, God forbid, that they're shifting the election in order to give room. The Senate President was talking about the need for them to take care and be quite particular and meticulous about this. But yeah, but all of that within good time. This job has been in the National Assembly. It has been in the National Assembly, I think, for ages. Definitely, they've had more than 2-3 years. In fact, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar was complaining, and there are quite a number of stories out there about this. He was complaining, he's of the opposition, of course. He was, or ADC, he was complaining that, in fact, you can't really blame them if they think that there's more to this than meets the eye. What can be too big? What can be so big that they won't have dealt with this job? All that they need to do is prepare a good amendment, let it be presented to the president, so every other thing can flow from there. And as we are now, I think the Senate President gave them what when he put this committee in place on Thursday, he gave them 48 hours so that they could come back to the House, and then after they looked at it within the House, then it will go to the committee of the whole House when they will now discuss it. But they wanted, and the Senate President was saying that they had to be meticulous. I wish we had somebody from the National Assembly, but they're not likely to come out and want to speak about this because it doesn't look good, quite frankly speaking. But I imagine that all of these time frames that we work with, they will have something of a margin embedded, and therefore maybe what we lose on the curve, we'll probably gain on the straight, so to speak, as we go along.
You see, the opposition party, just like you rightly pointed out what the vice president said, they must be very skeptical. You know, part of the issues determined by the Supreme Court in the case of Atiku and INEC is the issue of transmission of results via electronic transmission.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Supreme Court, then, you know, there is no particular provision that is clear that the presiding officer must transmit the result electronically. And you see the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal run out that issue, and it determined it in favor of the respondent and against the Atiku. So you know, now they are maybe speculating that if this amendment bill was not made, maybe it will still happen that in the 2027 election, there will be no electronic transmission, which they think that it is more transparent and credible. And in addition, the provision of this amended bill make a provision for comparison between the hard copy, that is the physical transmission, and the electronic transmission even in the event of conflict. So it is very, very fundamental that this bill passed the National Assembly and assented by the president in time, so that those provisions are being in touch with the current electoral law. You know, additionally, in the cases of Oyetola and INEC and other election cases that hold in 2023, there are many principles that emanated from those decisions by the apex court, particularly the issue of tendering of card readers and all of that. You know, in the previous election, there is no provision for electronic transmission per se that the INEC is bound to comply with, which this 2025 amended bill is trying to bring into. So they have to be putting pressure on the National Assembly so that that provision will be in the law before the commencement of the 2027 election. So they are, from their own opinion, that it is late, and as I said it earlier, it is a little bit late. But now that the president of the Senate constituted this committee and give them a short period of time within which they
48
will
hours
come
from
up
Thursday.
with their 48 hours from Thursday. So you see, if it is today, I think the session is going to hold today. So if the committee is done with all, because they have a lot to do, there are so many.
The committee has to report back
to
to the House today. The committee has to report
Yes,
back to the House today.
For them to do that, it is necessary for them to do that so that the House will deliberate on it. If the House reach its stand, then it should be moved to the committee so that they will have their clean copy to forward to the president for his asset. So I think it is a matter of fact that the National Assembly shall fast track their process of passing the bill so that the parties and the court that will be waiting for the outcome of the law for their dispensation of their cases before them. And then, you know, if it is too late, you know, the emergence of new principles and new provisions of law, you know, it will be very difficult if the court can, within the stipulated period provided for them to determine the pre-election cases, will do that conveniently. So I think it, as a matter of urgent, it is good if the National Assembly will fast track the passing of this bill so that the president will assent to it and it become a law.
Indeed.
Yes.
Because it's a very, very important job. There are those who are still wondering how it is that INEC is now, I mean, I beg your pardon, not INEC, the Senate is, you know, quote unquote, acting a bit like how people complain that we start our preparations for major football, global football outings too late. And that is what people are saying. After all, it must be remembered that the House of Reps has finished with this. It has finished with this, has passed it, but it is now to harmonize it, and here we are with the Senate. And a lot of people are looking forward to that particular aspect of, you should please transmit the election results. We want to see, everybody says it just will help the whole process if everybody can see that, yeah, this is what, you know, between the hard copy and the one that is transmitted, there is no disparity. So that's what people want, and that's what the Senate should be working towards. The Senate President has said that that is part of why it's seemingly, you know, a bit, you know, close. Let me just put it like that. Let me not say late. It's seemingly this close. After all, the election, the presidential election is built for February 2027. So technically, they can say perhaps that we have all of the 28 days of February now. What one just would have thought that they might have dealt with this thing with a bit more dispatch. But such are the workings of the Senate, and we'll have to just take it the way it is. But as you've pointed out, and as opposition that is watching all of this with an eagle eye has begun to suggest, why won't we be ahead for once? Maybe we could get calls from home as well, from experts and interested parties at home, to see to evaluate what the Senate President has said, that all of this is in a bid for them to take their time. They don't want to rush this. But people are pointing out that what is the rush that we're talking about? It's been with them for a while, and people are finding it hard to understand how the Senate cannot be, dare one say it, blamed and be thought to be dragging their feet a bit. But perhaps they will indeed. Actually, they're to submit their findings to the House. It's not today, it's tomorrow. I think it's by Tuesday. And then they will now go into a committee of the whole House and begin an item by item, very close with a magnifying glass, metaphorically speaking, to see all the things that can be amended. But they do stricter penalties for electoral offenses. For example, if you were to take that, Mr. Mohammed, stricter penalty for electoral offenses, that is one of the aspects that can be addressed in this bill, apart from, well, it's part of expanding the voters' identification options, all of which is about curbing fraud. Can you talk to me a bit about stricter penalties for electoral offenses? What are the options there? What are the options there? What is felt to be a bit loose that needs to be tightened for people to sort of know that it's not business as usual?
You see, the reforms that our electoral system experienced from 2010 to today, the major problem that has not been tackled or is yet to be tackled is the issue of vote buying. Issue of now disruption, issues of confiscation of ballot box, issues of forging ballot papers and just be printing and putting in the box,
yes,
has been curbed by the introduction of card reader. Now, the main issue that remains a challenge to the Nigerian election is the issue of vote buying, which by this amended bill, if it passes, it put what do you call it, steeper punishment to the offenders if convicted, imposing the fine of 5 million naira and 2 years imprisonment. In addition to that, 10 years ban.
Okay.
So you see, it is so that the actors, because major actors in this issue of electoral malpractice candidates, majorly are candidates and they are they are agents. Now, by imposing this punishment, somebody who you engage to vote buying, at least if the money that you give to him is not up to 5 million naira, and the voter who will receive this money will not receive anything less than 10,000 naira. Now, if he is aware that in the process of getting this money at the election area or at the polling unit, he will get caught and taken to the court. If he is convicted, he is going to pay a fine of 5 million naira. It is not an easy thing for an ordinary citizen to be fined 5 million naira or imprisonment, to be jailed for 2 years without a fine if the court decide. And then if it is the candidate who is the actor, his main objection by that offense, by committing that offense, is to win the election. So now it's not the issue only of winning the election. You are going to be banned from participating in any election in Nigeria for 10 good years. So you see, with this, I believe if the government will ensure that this law has taken its effect, and then it has been put in practice, because we have very good laws, but sometimes when it comes to enforcement of the law, that is where the problem is. But when this law is enforced, I believe the issue of vote buying will be a history in Nigeria, because so far so good. The main challenge and the greatest challenge is that of vote buying. So I'm happy that the legislature made this observation and amend the punishment, the penalty for the offenders. And it is a very good approach to curb the issue of vote buying, because it is what will make the election to be fair and to be out of any undue influence. So that is how we can get a free and fair election. But if there is issue of vote buying, issue of influence, I believe we still have a lot to do so as to have a fair election in Nigeria. So I'm happy with that provision, and I wish that the National Assembly should maintain it in the course of reviewing the bill, should maintain that stand that whosoever is found guilty of election malpractice will be banned for 10 years and will be fined 5 million naira, irrespective of whether he is the candidate or the agent of that candidate or even the voter. So if we go by that way, I believe the issue of our election will be more credible and transparent.
And in terms of enhancing voters' confidence, because these are some of the things that the, apart from these stricter penalties, one of the... Please go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Voters' confidence is being restored now, because if you look at the 2023 election, the previous 2023 election, people came out and vote, and by using the not card reader, beavers. By the use of beavers, there is no way single vote will add to the ballot box. The number of the vote cast must tally with the number of accredited voters. So by that, there is no way we can get additional votes. And if there is an addition, if it is one, the presiding officer is empowered by the Electoral Act to cancel the election and upload the form ECGH, that is the form of cancellation. He should upload it and submit the hard copy to the returning officer. So if at the end of the election, the margin between the winner and the runner-up is not the variance between the runner-up and if the number of cancellation can turn the runner-up to be the winner, then there must be a rerun election. So you see, with that, the confidence of voters is restored that every citizen is entitled to one vote, one man, one vote. So that confidence has been restored. Then the only issue is that the opposition are complaining that they are not having the money. It is the ruling party that has the money to bring out and buy votes. So if the issue of vote buying is sanctioned, I believe the confidence of voters will 100% be restored, and the participation in the election in Nigeria will have a large turnout in the next coming election. So the confidence of voters is being restored. And with this bill, if it is effectively enforced, I believe the Nigerian election and the Nigerian electorate will have a confidence in the election conducted by the INEC.
Okay. One moment, please, while I take our first caller. Mr. George has called in from Ikeja. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. It's nice to have you back.
Same here. Same here.
I hope you had a nice holiday.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Compliments of the season.
The lady that relieved you did well. She's very intelligent. Welcome back.
Yeah. She did a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Uncle Yori, what I'm surprised about is the hurry that is being put into this electoral amendment. Why all the hurry? As if we didn't have laws that guide elections before now. There have been laws, and those laws that are there, how effective have they been in terms of enforcement in the past? Enforcement is not there. Let the Senate take their time to do the amendment. Don't forget that the INEC chairman is new there. He needs to be some of what is on the ground to be able to know how to decipher the relevant laws that can bring about the changes that we desire. Let them take their time to do it and do it well. For example, how many people are even aware of the details of this amendment that they are proposing? I remember on this program, we have only discussed it once, if not twice, the details. And I said at that time that we do not need to hold all the elections in one day. I see a situation where some people are trying to bamboozle the lawmakers to do it in their own way. Before you know it, we will now begin to spot errors. We do not need to hold all the elections in one day. The electorate in Nigeria is not as sophisticated as like that in the level of electoral education. If we do that, we will put ourselves into a situation that we find it very difficult to control. So that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Appreciate your call. Mr. Yusuf. Okay, thank you for staying with us and indeed for joining us if you've just arrived. We're looking at the amendment of the Electoral Act 2022, a repeal and enactment bill of 2026. Well, the Senate President, he's constituted this committee to harmonize, because it has already been dealt with by the House of Reps. Now the Senate needs to harmonize the matters. And there are complaints that the Senate seems to be taking its sweet time, but perhaps not so, says the Senate President, that this is a very, very important and delicate matter. And so they're going to be as speedy as they can, but they're going to make sure that they don't rush. But that caller, and our guest is Mr. Yusuf Mohammed, Assistant Secretary, MBA Building Kebbi Branch. And that caller, just before we went on break, his point of view was that what's the rush, that they should take their time. Well, I don't know what you think, because we sort of looked at the arithmetic of INEC should have 12 months to organize its timetable, but as it is, this is going to begin to eat into those 12 months if it is not done by February. We'll see how that goes. But what do you think about the comment from that viewer that he doesn't see what the rush is, and that all elections don't have to be held on the same day? How say you on these aspects?
Well, there is one thing that we must put into consideration. The issue of enactment of law is not squarely on the National Assembly alone. The executives, that is the president, has his own role to play, and that is why you see the Constitution give a particular period for him within which he can assent to a bill, and also the Constitution gives him the right to make necessary modification where he deems it necessary and return it back to the National Assembly for their consideration. If you remember, in the 2022 amended Electoral Act, after even the assent by the president, there is issue that emerged, which took the federal government to take the National Assembly to the court for interpretation of Section 84 sub 12. So you see, it is necessary for them to expedite the process so that the president will look at it. If the president look at it and it is done, and he thinks that it is okay for him to assent, he can assent. So we must take that into consideration. Taking into consideration the period provided by the Extant Electoral Act for the INEC to give notice of the election, that is a period of 1 year. And then we are now in the month of February, and the next election will be held in February. So you see, all these factors have to put into consideration, and except and until if we did not intend the amended bill to be used for the 2027 election. But if we intend that the bill shall have force in the 2027 election, there is need to expedite the process and to have a law enforced. I have mentioned the issue of pre-election, and it is the Electoral Act that governed the proceedings of pre-election. Let me give you an example. The 2022 pre-election matters with the coming of the 2022 Electoral Act. The guidelines attached to the Electoral Act made it mandatory that any pre-election matter must be commenced by way of ordinary summons. And as at that time, some of the litigants, that is the claimant, had already filed their process. Most of them had to, withdraw their process and refile again. So if this happened again this year, it may be detrimental to the aggrieved parties, and it may be detrimental to the electoral process in general. So it is good to have the law. We're supposed to have it by 2025. In the 2026, the law is with the general public, the law is with the INEC, the law is with the courts, and with the political parties, so that they know the provision in the conduct of their primaries, they know the procedures to follow. The issue of even withdrawal of candidates, this electoral bill has come with additional requirement. In the 2022, once a candidate withdraw from election, withdraw his candidature, that is the end of the story. But this amendment bill came with additional requirement that he must depose to affidavit that he is withdrawing from the election, and that affidavit must be filed with INEC. So now, if the political parties are not aware of these provisions, and then they have an issue of a candidate withdrawing without deposing to the affidavit, and they filled him with another candidate, the INEC will not consider the subsequent candidate as the legitimate or qualified candidate to participate in the election. So there are so many issues that need to be addressed in the amended bill, which it must be in the public consumption before the period of primary election. The act restricted or limited the period within which primary election will be conducted. And you see the issue of this digital registration of parties membership and all of that,
Yes.
which is incorporated in the bill. It's something that they consider, because I know that some of the political parties are now conducting their membership registration, and very soon the issue of convention will come up. So if these issues had not been concluded by the National Assembly and passed this law, it may create another confusion in the electoral process of this country. So these are the things that we must consider. We should not just say, because with the determination of the courts in cases of election, that is where we generate reforms. That is where we get gray areas that need reform. So you see, the 2023 election cases that are determined by the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal, in the cases that are determined by the Court of Appeal, there are some reforms. There are some areas that the court highlighted which are not mandatory by the INEC to comply with, which they are good to give our election process credibility and transparency. So these issues and these facts are what the amended 2026 bill is trying to incorporate in the law. So you see, it is good that we have it for our consumption before it is late. So the issue of conducting election in the same day, or whether the election will be conducted in the same day or not, is something that we look at. It is the responsibility of the INEC. The INEC knows the kind of equipment they want. If you remember, in the last 2023 election, INEC has to apply to the court to erase data in their server, so that they will put they will upload the governorship and state assembly election data in their server, which they have to approach the court. So how do you know that INEC had the facilities that will make them to conduct the whole election of a president, National Assembly, governorship, and state assembly in the same date? So they are the ones that will decide. And if the law will now, compel them to conduct election in the same day, so that law must come in time, so that they will get adequate time to make their preparation for the conduct of that election. We are 12 months to the election, and if something else came which the INEC is not ready for it, there is tendency that the election will be postponed, just like it happens in the previous elections of 2011, 2015, and even 2020.
So there
these
is,
are the
because there's so much work to be done, as you were explaining earlier, even the fact that it gets to the president doesn't mean that there will be a turnaround. technical, I mean, it is possible technically, but I suppose it's a bit more, it's wiser to build in time. Let us say that the executive has issues that it wants to be readdressed or looked at again or whatever, and there has to be the time, because if there isn't, and they still go ahead and take it, because at the end of the day, it's about reforms, and they probably they want to do it properly. So this can cause problems, and that's why, as you've just pointed out, elections have been postponed before, when there seemed to be no other option. But then, if we're talking about reforms, the whole idea is to reform the nation's electoral process by enhancing transparency. Because that's one of the challenges we've been having in this country. Enhancing transparency to show that, look, we're being as fair as can be, and this often needs a lot of work. This often needs a lot of work, by which I mean this thing is going to be discussed, and then people will have to decide whether to pass this. In fact, I just don't, let me not be pessimistic about it, but it's like the Senate knew how cumbersome this whole process is. And that's why they actually were recommending that, you know what, I think we should make copies, that's the Senate saying to themselves, we should make copies of all the amendments that have already been made, so that people can go back, senators can go back home with those documents, understand what the issue is about, and then come and make intelligible contributions. But in the meantime, Mr. Mohammed, Mazi Okorafor has joined us. Good morning to you, Mazi Okorafor.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Happy New Year. Happy New Month. We thank God for everything.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Honestly, this issue of committee, see, the problem we have in Nigeria is this issue of committee. When you come, you form committee. After the committee will come, they now bring another committee to come and review it. By the time they review it, they now come back to the house to debate. By the time they debate, they now come now to pass it. By the time they finish passing, they now send it for vote to the Senate, to the president. All these things are delayed. They delay all this because this is just the legal system. Because at the end of the day, election is next year. Why all this become? This is something that they could have packaged what they have finished and let all this go. Because this Electoral Act is very, very important. Very, very important, because everybody is hammering on this issue. That is why you see this. Somebody will leave one party, they will go to you. When you go to the National Assembly or you disappear. Go down to, because you want where the voice is, which is not healthy. So the earlier is sit down and decide on this our electoral. Now look at even the constitution we are talking about, our constitution. Every day constitution. Since we could imagine up to today, we don't have constitution. Everything that, look, what is the problem of Nigeria's National Assembly? They are delaying this country. Only they are the people who are making this as if nothing is happening in terms of constitution, in terms of other areas of the behavior in this country. The National Assembly do the needful now or ever. Where 20% will come, I think Nigeria will sign their eyes and select or vote for people that will do the needful. Good morning, Mazi Okorafor from Michigan.
Thank you very much, Mazi Okorafor. It's interesting the way the conversation is ebbing and flowing, because you, Barrister Mohammed, you've explained it that it's a very delicate and cumbersome matter. In fact, so much so that the Senate President caused copies to be made for all the members concerned, so that they could go home and study this intricate aspect. There are so many aspects to it, and all of which, because we're talking about reform here, they're aimed at sanitizing the election as much as possible. Now, we want to have it in good enough time for INEC not to be delayed, but as you've said, if need be, perhaps.
Yes, you see, when we are talking about having this electoral law in time, you know, it is the guideline, it is the only law that we have that regulates the conduct of our election. And then when we talk about having this law in time, it is not for the only consumption of the National Assembly, but for other stakeholders in the conduct and determination of electoral issues. This involved the courts, the political parties, and the voters, the INEC itself. So you see, it is very good move made by the Senate President that the available copies should be made to the members so that they will take it home, digest, and they come back. So if that is done, the key areas and the gray areas that need to be addressed urgently are those that we have discussed earlier on. That is the issue of electoral malpractices, that is electoral offenses, the issues of qualification, the issue of grounds of petition, and other things. You see, they must be addressed as a matter of urgent. Because if that is not done, and the pre-election issues are coming in a couple of months, because once the primary election is conducted, there must be agreed parties. And those agreed parties, they are going to court. So if they go to court, which law is going to govern the proceedings and the litigation of the electoral pre-election cases? It's the Electoral Act, and it has not been yet assented.
Well, okay, sorry about that. There was an issue, but we're back now. It so happened that we couldn't hear each other, but Mr. Yusuf Mohammed, Assistant Secretary, MBA Birnin Kebbi Branch, is with us live from Birnin Kebbi, I believe. So thank you very much. So I think, can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Actually, there was a mutual not hearing each other. I couldn't hear you, you couldn't hear me, but now we're back. And well, time is far spent. But I think what I've noticed from this conversation that we've been having is that people are saying, look, we might as well just take our time and do it properly. It's just that a lot of people are worried about that. In fact, as I said, opposition figures, you probably know it's in the news, have been saying that, are we sure this is not a whole construct? You people have come again. You people have come. Well, what is so difficult in doing all of this? But, here we are. But it is a reform, and this government is noted for reforms, and it just wants to sort of tidy all those areas up. But the criticism has been that the National Assembly has taken too much time on this. The National Assembly is saying, well, you can say that, but we know that we won't be rushed. And then some commentators are also saying that don't rush them. Mazi Okorafo, I don't know what his position was. It was somewhere in between. Mr. George Pomikeja said that there's no need. But is it your point of view, Mr. Mohammed, that we should just go ahead, understand the job to be done, and then just plod on? Because you've also explained that it still has to go to the executive.
Yes.
It still has to go to the executive. The executive might not do an automatic turnaround.
Exactly. So you see, sir, what the opposition must make such allegations. You know, the opposition side is always the side that will be complaining in the manner the election is being conducted.
Yes.
And then if they are perceiving that these reforms, if made in this new law, that is the amended Electoral Act, it will prevent the ruling party from manipulating the election by the use of money to buy votes and all of that. Now, they are seeing that the Senate are, what do you call it, a participant of the election because they are the product of election. They get to the National Assembly through the election.
Okay.
So now, most of them or all of them are going to participate in their election in the year 2027. And if this law is not passed, they will have the opportunity to leverage on by making themselves re-elected.
Okay.
But they have seen that if this law is put into effect, so all those influence, use of money are going to be curbed. So
okay, we're going to have to leave it here for now, Mr. Mohammed. I beg your pardon for jumping down your throat, so to speak. We've completely run out of time. The technical gremlin, it stole some of our precious minutes. But thank you very much, Yusuf Mohammed, Assistant Secretary, MBA, Birin Kebi. Really appreciate you coming on the program and looking at this. I really do thank you for your time. Okay, we're going to have to leave it here now. But do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition of the program. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.